welcome back. Well, yes, as you've seen there, Mr. Babatunde Ogala joins us now. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria and a member of the Board of Trustees of APC Professionals Forum. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off on a general note. I mean, just looking through how different people are responding to the policies of the government and trying to see if the authorities get things right. And you read a lot of these comments as well, and you hear them too. So what would your impression be about how the assessment of how things are turning out so far?
For me, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, I'm a party man like you possibly know, a president's lawyer like you possibly know, but first and foremost, I am a Nigerian, and I will speak as a Nigerian, and I want to be perceived as such. I'm not unconscious of the fact that Nigerians are generally in a hurry. I'm not unconscious of the fact that the country has been in dire straits for some decades, and it has continuously deteriorated. But one thing we must give to this administration, and most especially the president, is the passion to make that change. Is the passion to put us back on the right course. Is that passion and the willingness to take bold decisions. And what was a bold decision? First, we had to address the issue of the subsidy, which everybody, and I say this, all presidential aspirants across party lines recognize that it had to go. We also must look at what they have done with the Naira. Over time, we've all noticed, and we all know what they call arbitrage, we all know what they call brokerage, we all know what they call manipulating the Naira. Recently, I heard ways and means that we're just printing Naira and what have you. I'm not one to condemn the immediate past administration, because even the president himself had said during the campaigns that I'm going to move with the assets and liabilities of that administration. But that administration, of course, may have made some mistakes, and one of which is the management of the economy. This president has come, has put policies in place, has made statements, and then we all see what he's been doing with the diplomatic shuttles. Some will say, oh, he's always on the road, he's in Qatar today. He's not going there to play. And even if you are going to play, who can travel for 2-3 days and say he's playing, travel 8 hours on, 8 hours back, and you are back in 3 days, and you imagine that man is having fun? That is not fun. That is torture. But that is working for the country. So what has the diplomatic shuttles, what has it achieved? We need to start looking at that. We hear people who say, oh, foreign investors, what are the results? It's been in office for only 8 months. It's going to be 9, perhaps in a couple of weeks. It will be 9 months, 9 months or 10 months in office in a couple of weeks. So when we want to assess, look at the monetary policy that is being put in place today. I understand that the foreign reserve at some point was as low as $3 billion. That, of course, you cannot do international business. Naturally, you have dollar scarcity. Nobody wants to do business with you, because the foreign reserve that is used to guarantee your foreign trade, that instills confidence in those who want to do business with you. Last weekend, I think on Friday, I hear from $3 billion, it has now gone as far as, I think, $34 billion. That is where the foreign. This is a quantum leap. This is some achievements. How has it managed the public outcry, other than the NLC strike and what have you? Even the ASU, there has been some stability in the education sector. Only this morning, on your news while I was waiting, I hear Sanu is also saying, oh, you have to pay us for this period of your strike. And I think one of somebody on your program, one of you here, had also said, oh, policy of no work, no pay. So Tinubu has now graciously granted 4 months to ASU, and Sanu will ask, of course, NASU will follow. Again, this has also brought some stability in the education sector. On agriculture, and that is one area that I think the president is being overburdened, and I must say he's doing well with the educational program. But the question a lot of us are also not asking, which I think ought to be asked, is that we are not calling the state governors out. Agriculture is not under exclusive list. In fact, if I had my way, it should be under a residual list. Federal government should only be concerned with policies, and more especially as it concerns even foreign, not the local food production. Here we hear Ibim Power. If Ibim Power, it is not Tinubu. It should be the state governor. And I break it down to very elementary arguments. Going back in time, what were the staple foods? Rice was not staple food in Nigeria. Ekitis, Ijeshas, the Igbos, Benue, the rest of them. Staple food was pounded yam. The pounded yam was cultivated in their land. In Yoruba land, you go to Ibadan and the rest of them, Amala from yam, it was cultivated there. There's even one brand of rice we call Ofada rice, which everybody wants to eat now. That means it was being cultivated somewhere in Ofada in Ogun State. And then there was Abakaliki rice. And across the country, we had every part, every locality that had something. They are staple foods. So rice is not a staple food. The question we then ask is, what has then happened to our staple foods? We acquired new tastes. Now, to come back with the crisis we have, we can no longer import rice. We can no longer import these new tastes. We have to go back to the things we produce. What does it take the state governors? The legumes, tomatoes, onions, beans, and the rest of them is 3 months. Yam, 6 months. Cassava, 4 months. So you can have maize, sorghum, millet. All these things, they have just 3 months. We're not talking of cocoa here. We're not talking of, no, let me make this point.
Yeah.
So if every state governor would do a little bit of what the Niger state governor is doing and say, Ogun state governor, let me cultivate. Look, travel from Ogere to Ibadan. I'll give you an example. Travel from Ogere to Ibadan. On your left, on your right, you see this wild plantain that produces no food. What does that tell me? It tells me that plantain and bananas can be cultivated there, but it is just wild. These are ungoverned lands. Go to Shagamu from Benin, wild forest left and side. Even Lagos to Ibadan, what we see springing up are churches, where we should be having farms. What are the governors doing to say, let every governor just invest a little in agric, feed its people locally, not wait for the federal government. So in that area again, I would say the federal government, but unfortunately the burden, our people all look only in the direction of the villa, Abuja. They are not asking questions of their governors. They are not asking questions of their local government. Chamberlain, as growing up child, as I was growing up, one of the basic things we knew we had to do growing up was cultivate our own little farm. Even we cultivated beans and things like that, even in cans, in cups. Some of us were breeding fishes in bottles, mini aquarium. We had birds. In some cases, you had chicken that lay eggs, and then the eggs hatch, and you tend to them. That is agriculture. So it is cultural to us. So for me, the federal government has done its bit in agric, but we have no reason to say Nigerians are hungry. If Nigerians are hungry, responsibility is on the sub-nationals.
You know, the
Niger state government, as of today, they say has acquired about 1,000 tractors. And it's clearing land, especially in the stronghold of the bandits. Like I tell you, they say they kidnap and hide in the bushes and in the forest. What is a bush? Ungoverned land. If you plant legumes 1 kilometer this way, 1 kilometer this way, and there are tomatoes, ewedu, all this height, there's nowhere for any kidnapper to hide. It also affects security.
There are several components to the issue you raised about the governors. And I know we've raised several times.
No, the sub-nationals, I say.
Yeah.
So, and it goes all the way to the local government.
Because, I mean, that was part of the reason why we were talking about what Professor Bathanaji is doing in Abia State. If other states will latch onto that, because he says actually it should take 3 years So no governor will have any excuse if they wanted to do that. There's no excuse why they can't do it. But when you say agri left to you, you think residual list may not be a bad idea. So is this something that you may suggest to the president to see how do we ensure that we get a lot more states?
Absolutely. I'm sure if the president is not watching me, some of his men will be watching me. And if I have the opportunity, these are the things I will suggest to him. Mr. President, call your governors. Call them out. Look, let the governors not just dance to Abuja and dance back continuously. We sit down, we talk about insecurity. Food security is huge. Food security. A few days ago, some bandits, because that's what I call them, is criminality, were said to have looted a warehouse. I mean, what they take from there is not what they want to eat, it's what they are going to resell. They are what they are, bandits, is criminality. There's no excuse. The average Nigerian has no reason not to be food secured. And that responsibility is on the subnationals. If we take that, I mean, they say there are 3 basic needs of man: housing, food, and what's the third one now? Including. If we take that out, the rest, and that is easy if the subnationals are doing their bit. Niger State Governor, they say 1,000 tractors he has bought. Look, have you wondered that these days our unskilled labor, unskilled, does not want to do unskilled work? Nobody wants to work. It's a sense of entitlement. Everybody is looking for government is not doing, government is not doing. What are you doing for yourself? The person who says the government is not doing is also not paying taxes. And where he pays is not paying commensurate. I may also be guilty. We are all guilty. You understand? You know, the cost of living is high. Go look. The person who says he's hungry comes to you, and it's amazing. Sometimes you are driving in traffic, you see people on the streets begging. You give that man 500 naira, and the next thing is he buys a bottle of Coke and Gala. And then the man says, the next thing he says, I am hungry, and he doesn't want to work. So a lot of the time, our excesses, we need to change our taste. We need to change lifestyle. The bars are still very full. Our parties are not stopping. We are still investing in Ashwebi as usual.
I'm still listening. I'm listening. I've listened, to a lot of things that you've said. You talked about how one of the things you can give to the president is his passion. Some people will say we wish passion could put food on the table.
Yes.
To change things. But
that's why I've told you what could put food on the table.
Passion is not enough. On the part of the federal government, what people are also wondering is whether it has set that tone. The tone of communication, which it wants other, not just communication in terms of what it says, but also in terms of what it does. Whether it has set that tone for state governments to follow. Recently, we heard about the Oronsanye report, which the federal government is trying to implement. And I'm sure you must have seen cartoons of how people are perceiving the report. They think, oh, you want to cut down the size of government in general, but the president's cabinet is still so big. We've not heard how government intends to use more local products in terms of how it runs its own government. For instance, local vehicles assembled in Nigeria, giving priority to whatever is locally produced over that which is imported. So while it is good that everybody should look inwards, and we can also talk about what the states are doing, they're wondering whether there's been enough signaling from the federal government in terms of how it is running its own affairs to be able to show example to the subnationals.
Yes. Look, I think let's take the subnationals out. And you see, the subnationals, that's why what they are, subnationals. They are semi-autonomous. They are not submissive or reporting to the federal government. We'll rather talk about the people. And like you said, the government has said, oh, tighten your belts, if I could use those words as it was used in the past, make sacrifices and all of that. And whether the federal government itself is making the sacrifice, and then we talked about the Oronsanye report. But let me start with the Oronsanye report. That is a report that had been out there for 11 years. So yes, 11 or so. or 13. Some have said it's obsolete. I think my brother Silk, Femi Falana, said it is obsolete. I would almost agree with him. But we must, this is perhaps the only president who has taken a bold decision. I've read that report about 3-4 times since that decision was made. I read it, I think I still read it a few days ago. I just keep looking at it, going back to it, forward and backwards and all of that. And I could see that even those who commissioned your Oronsoye report who rejected as much as 70% or 60% of his recommendation. But if we can implement that 40%, as obsolete as we think it is, I'm sure it would, if it had been implemented at the time it was done, and the 40% that had been accepted had been implemented, maybe we would have cut down by 40%. But at least we can still rescue some 10-20%.
That's for the Oronsoye report. For the president's cabinet.
The president's cabinet of 45 ministers. Unfortunately, rather than look at the president, let us look at our constitution, which unfortunately I've said, you must have a minister from every state. You must.
What's unfortunate about that?
No, just hang on a minute. The president during his campaign kept saying a government of national competence was what he was going to form. He said government of national competence. Of course, when he was saying that, I'm sure perhaps he did not avert himself to the constitutional provision, which says you must have minimum of 37 ministers. It's non-negotiable. 37. Then, of the 37, there are also provisions for more on zonal level. 6. You are already 42. Which ordinarily one would say is huge. But again, I know we tend to make comparison with some other countries, especially the United States, and say, oh, there are 13 secretaries or 12 secretaries and all of that. In the United States, they don't have anything called federal character. In the United States, they have not said you must speak from every state. They did not say you must speak from every state. They did not say there must be some religious balance. It did not say all of that. It just says, if I give you the discretion.
Are you blaming the Constitution?
No, wait, just hang on. No, I must blame the Constitution. If I had my way, that thing, the federal character, quota and all of that, it is what, if the Constitution says you must have 36, how could the president go less and not be said to have committed some impeachable offenses? So he cannot go less than that. He cannot.
But he can stay at 37.
So the Constitution first. But again, we also have to look at the complexities of our country. America doesn't have the kind of insecurity problem we have. It doesn't have the entitlement mentality of our country. It doesn't have the complexity of religion. It doesn't have the complexity of gender. It doesn't have the complexity of ethnicity. Here you are dealing with 250 ethnic groups. There are 19 more Christians than Muslims, more Muslims than Christians. Those are the kind of arguments we have. Only this morning, while I was sitting down waiting to come on this program, I was reading somewhere where a group was saying because they want to take some simulation equipment and fire equipment from the aviation school in Zaria to Lagos, that they are trying to deplete the North. We also the controversy that followed, transferring 2, 3, 4 departments of 27 in CBN, especially on banking supervision, where the banks are situated, and you say you are trying to take CBN. Same thing when FAN, which has 70% of its operation, brought its headquarters to Abuja, and they are saying return it to Lagos where you are operational. But we also remember that where the Ministry of Defense is presently situated was built by the Nigerian Ports Authority. It was meant to be the headquarters. And President Bazoum said, no, we are the ports in Abuja. Go back to where you are most relevant. And they went back to their head office in Marina, just across from the busiest ports in Nigeria. Right? But here we are, forgetting that even where we call the Federal Capital Territory is neither south nor north. It's a federal territory. But a senator of the Federal Republic came on there and started this controversy. Those are the complexities of my country.
Member of your party.
Those are the complexities. A member of my party.
A member of your party.
Yes.
Just before we quickly go to Ayo, another issue, and maybe Ayo can also expand on this, is the issue of transparency, which is something, I mean, you have talked about how you don't want to blame the past administration because the president has inherited both assets and liabilities.
Yes.
However, people believe that if we had been dealt with more transparency, we would not have been where we are. The country would have been abreast of what was going on, and this is where we are right now. Even as at now, there's still no clarity with, excuse me, the issue of subsidy removal, for instance. Only yesterday, Mr. Femi Falana was said to have issued a statement asking the federal government to be clear on what exactly it is doing with subsidy. Has it been reinstated? 1 trillion naira per month is what we hear, and there's been no rebuttal. What has greeted us is silence. The president has gone out to tell investors, if anybody asks you to offer a bribe, you know, reach me directly, etc. But how many Nigerians can reach the president directly with issues when issues of transparency are concerned? So would you say that even in that regard, there's been sufficient signaling with transparency in this administration?
You see, the transparency, like anywhere in the world, anywhere, there are structures put in place for every citizen who wants to know what is happening in government. One of which is the FOI Act. I said, look, people will say, oh, the government. Yes, we have come from a military government. Most of the top echelon of the service are people who were recruited in the military era. Many of us still even have a military mentality. For the average person of my size, of my age, the 60s and above, we've lived we've seen more of military rule in our lives than civil rule. More of military. So a lot of us grew up to become adults up to maybe our late 20s and early 30s, knowing the military as way to go. Now we are back to civil rule, which is only just 25 years in our 60-year history. So our people also, because look, the Constitution has provided processes and procedure on how the executive should account, the judiciary should account, and even the legislature itself should account. How many of us are calling out? Are we asking questions? And when you say when people speak, of course, the president cannot hear everything. He has aides. Sometimes, I give you an instance. There was a day I was privileged to just have been in his presence. And there was something that was breaking. And I mentioned it, and he was like, ha. I said, yes, sir. So he looked at the TV, said, you know, I've been at meetings all day and all that. He looked at the TV, and it was streaming. And right there and then, I saw him take action. Right there on the spot. So we, the citizens, if we see something, say something.
But then that's one of the reasons. My apologies, Mr. Ogala.
The government.
Sorry, just 1 second, Mr. Ogala, if you can hear me. Perhaps see something, say something is the reason we have this. One member of your party also calling the president out for one thing or the other. I'm sure that information will come on screen shortly. But if you can just quickly take this one thing. I'm sure you've mentioned the fact that the Constitution has a responsibility and all of that. And generally, we talk about government. This might be a philosophical question of sorts, but I think it begs the question, really. When we say government, so who are we talking about? Or what section of Nigeria are we talking about? When we say government should do this or government should do that, an elected official has maximum 8 years, be it as president or governor. An appointed official has maximum 10 years if it is statutory. But civil servants can be there for decades. So when we talk about government, who are we talking about?
Max. You and I are government. There's no individual called government. The totality of us is government. I mean, what we just have that we call those who run the government. They run it, but be it in the executive, judiciary, and the legislative arm. But there's no individual. President Tinubu is not government.
So, but then when we call out government, when we say that, you know, the government should do this and government should do that, are you sure that Nigerians get that information that we are government? Or that when we say government should do this, we're actually calling out the people who are running the government? But then you also know that some have terminal times and some, their terminal time is much longer.
Yes. Look, when you hold an office, the terminal time or the tenure is immaterial. You know you have a responsibility. Even if it's your tenure is for 1 week, even if you are ad hoc, it's a responsibility. And if they say, okay, in Ogala you are appointed as A, you are going to be in office for 3 months. I already have my mandate of what I'm expected to do in 3 months. I have my mandate if it's for 1 month. I have my terms of reference. So it's no excuse. Nobody can give me the excuse that the time is not enough. Do your bit, leave the rest. No government anywhere, no president, no office holder can ever do it all.
Perhaps, and that also begs a question, just a second.
We'll take it on from there.
Something that you said, the reference you made to the United States of America, you talked about the complexities that they don't have, complexity of ethnicity and all of that. Of course, some people will argue with you on that one. However, the United States of America has one simplicity, the simplicity of nationhood, the simplicity of unity. Everyone, any American, wherever you meet, they don't tell you, I'm from this place, I'm from that place. So who should do the job? Just a second, sir. Just a second. Who should do the job of simplifying that for Nigeria so that we can have an ownership in Nigeria and not of any ethnic or religious or political sentiments?
You see, it has always been my belief, and I'm happy and I feel good that you raised this. In 2007, we were attending the BAC conference in Singapore, back in 2007. And one had the privilege of sitting with Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew, when he became the president or the leader of Singapore, they also had the kind of complexities we had. And he said to us, he said their first task was making Singaporeans out of Singaporeans. That people were Singaporeans in name and not Singaporeans in orientation. They had Caucasians, they had the Malays, they had Indians, they had Mandarins. Even among the Mandarins, there were Chinese, and among the Chinese, I mean, the Indians, they had the Sikhs, all manner. They had to weave them together to force it themselves as Singapore. That is why we see the American who says America first, which was Trump campaign mantra, as it were. America, let's take back our country. In Nigeria, unfortunately, we've not had that. In fact, I will tell you for free, and it's my conviction, that part of what has held this country down is the twin ethnicity and religion. We are very religious people, but unfortunately, maybe not too godly. Those two things have held us together. And those, as I said, they are the complexities. So it is the responsibility of the government to change the orientation of the people. I agree with you absolutely. It is the responsibility of those we have entrusted with governance.
Okay, so
lately, I must say, and
just one more thing before you go.
If I permit me to just say this, I've been seeing some releases, statements, and
we're coming to that, one of those statements
of the National Orientation Agency. We remember MAMSA, what he did. Andrew, check out. So it's for us to also, even if our leaders are not giving us the ownership, we must also make a conscious effort to want to take ownership.
Let's wind down with this.
This country belongs to all of us.
We've got less than 2 minutes, but speak to this. I know you must have also read it. A former member of your party. No, he's still a member of your party.
Who is that?
He's a former national vice chairman, Northwest. Look at what he said.
Oh, my friend, Sadio Lukman.
He's accusing the president of running government of exclusion like a dictator. He says the crucial issue is, having taken responsibility, how long will it take to get to the end of the tunnel?
Yes.
When will the expected light begin to shine?
Yes.
Without any hesitation, one can argue, at the rate we're going, our party, APC, and our leaders have shortchanged Nigerians.
Yes. His opinion. It is his opinion.
It's not a fact.
I mean, how can his opinion be my own fact? It is his opinion. Saliu is my very good friend. You try to say, I mean, Saliu is my very good friend. He once also even called me an incompetent lawyer. One day I was at his book launch, and I said, Saliu, I mean, I was representing President Tinubu there when I was to speak. I said, well, Saliu, this is that incompetent lawyer who was APC legal advisor, who is now here to do a presentation of your book. So it is his opinion. Honestly, I don't.
So are you?
I don't agree with him.
Entirely?
I don't agree with him when he says we have shortchanged Nigeria, but the critical questions he has asked, they are valid questions. We need to know there is light at the end of the tunnel. Nigerians want to know, where is that tunnel? How long is that tunnel? I mean, if you say end of the tunnel, is it a 1 kilometer tunnel, 100 meters tunnel? What is it? How long is it going to take us to get there? And that is what the president kept saying. There is light at the end of the tunnel. These are steps we are taking to get there. I mean, he's giving assurances. One thing I give to this president is he takes responsibility. He doesn't shy away. He has said the buck stops with me, not once, not twice. Even in Qatar, some have said, oh, why should you say if anybody demands or tries to frustrate? Because his full speech was in context. That, or demands bribe. Look, truly and rightly, I mean, not rightly, truly and really, we know there's this perception of Nigeria.
And we need to address it.
Do we run away from the reality? And the president is saying, before you accuse us, and perhaps this has even happened in the bilateral discussions. Because this was at discussions, and somebody had insinuated it. You remember when the British PM once said, Nigeria is fantastically corrupt. And thank God the actual Kajumburi was there to quickly address it. But the president must not leave such, if I was the president, and somebody has said that I will not leave it unanswered before I go out of that, I won't go back. So if he had said that if anybody, it shows commitment, it shows accepting our reality.
Yeah,
and
that's
commitment to changing the narrative.
All right, well, I have to thank you for coming on. Mr. Babatunde Ogala is a senior advocate of Nigeria, member, board of trustees, APC Professionals Forum, the president's lawyer. Thank you for coming on this morning.
No, I'm not the president's lawyer. I only happen to have been part of his legal team.
But I thought that's what you said at the beginning, that you know I was president's lawyer, which you know. I was just quoting you.
I was one of his counsel.
Okay,
in his election petition.
Okay, internalize that the way you want.
The president's lawyer is the Attorney General of the Federation.
Well,
and Bola Tinubu is, as an individual, is
on official basis, but we know what happens.